Chapter 864. You don't look like you lack money. Why do you want to learn how to make fake medicine? He asked in confusion. You only need to teach me. You don't need to know. But making fake medicine is very complicated. It's not something that can be explained in a few sentences. He bitterly said, and I don't have the time to teach you. Fengjiu raised her eyebrows and said, you only need to make it once for me to see. Seeing that he couldn't get rid of her, the male cultivator couldn't help but sigh. He resigned himself to his fate and took out a medicinal ingredient from his bag as he said, then you've seen it. I'll only make it once. Whether you can learn it or not is your business. You can't continue to hold on to me. He paused and said, this fake medicine is still medicine. It won't kill you. It's just that the medicinal effects are a little different. Look at this old ginseng. It's made from white radish. Let's do this first because he had all kinds of things in his Qianquan bag, it was convenient to make it. He explained to Fengjiu while he made it. In less than an hour, an old ginseng was ready. To make it more realistic, you can put some mud on it. As for the other medicinal ingredients, you have to choose similar ones. This way, it'll be more convenient to make it. I know about the old ginseng. What about the others? She asked as she took the fake old ginseng and looked at it. She didn't know much about medicine and was easily fooled. She had seen many fakes before, but this person made it the most realistic. If she learned this skill, she might be able to use it one day. Hearing this, the person hugged the bag of fake medicine and quickly retreated. He stared at Fengjiu warily and said, you just said that you only need to make it once. Yes. She nodded and smiled like a fox. But, I understand the old ginseng, but I don't understand the others. Also, you should have a prescription for this, right? You can forget about taking my prescription. As soon as he said that, he saw the young man in red appear in front of him in an instant. But you came to provoke me. You want to send me away with this. How can it be so simple? Looking at the young man's strange smile, his scalp tingled and he regretted it. If he knew that this young man was so difficult to deal with, he wouldn't have approached him. You took it yourself. Or should I do it myself? Fengjiu asked without any sense of shame. She had always treated people the same way they treated her. Since he dared to use fake medicine to fool her and have designs on her, she naturally had to make him pay. Fine, you win. He gritted his teeth and handed the handwriting to him. Fengjiu took a look at it and nodded, yes, not bad. The records are even clearer than what you said. Alright, don't say that I'm taking advantage of you. Leng Hua, give him 100 silver coins and consider it as me buying his skills. Yes. Leng Hua replied and took out 100 silver coins to give to the man. That person's mouth twitched. 100 silver coins. That was his ability to make a living, yet it was only worth 100 silver coins. Gritting his teeth, he took it. It would be a waste if he didn't take it. Although it was a small amount, it was better than nothing. The male cultivator who took the silver coins put it away and quickly disappeared without a trace, as if he was afraid that Fengjiu would take something from him on a whim. Master, this fake medicine can't be used. What's the point of learning it? Leng Hua asked in confusion. Chapter 865. The number one inn in the imperial city, other than being more luxurious than the other inns, the price was naturally not affordable for the average person. It could be said that the people who stayed in this inn were either rich or respectable. Innkeeper, give me 3 rooms. Fengjiu walked in and said to the counter. I'm sorry, young master, the rooms are full. Please look elsewhere. The innkeeper said apologetically. So it's like that. All right then. There's nothing I can do about it. She shrugged and did not mind. Just as she was about to leave with Ling Shuang and Ling Hua, she heard a voice. "Red-robed young master, please wait." A middle-aged man walked down from the second floor and called out to Fingzhou. Fingzhou turned around and looked at the middle-aged man. He asked, "You called me?" "Yes." The man nodded and looked at Fingzhou for a while. He smiled and asked, "May I ask if young master's surname is Feng?" "Your given name is Zhou." Hearing this, she raised her eyebrows and replied, "Yes." "Hee, that's right." The middle-aged man smiled and introduced himself, "I'm the head innkeeper of this number 1 inn. Someone has already booked a room for young master a month ago." "Oh. Who booked it for me? Who knew she was coming here? And even booked an inn?" "I don't know. He only sent someone to tell young master's appearance and name. At the same time, he booked 2 sky rooms for young master." The middle-aged man smiled and looked at the innkeeper who was standing behind the counter in a daze. His face darkened. "What are you doing? Didn't you say that the 2 sky rooms belong to a red-robed young master? Why are you pushing away a guest?" The innkeeper was stunned by the scolding. After a while, he came back to his senses and quickly said, "Head innkeeper, I already received a red-robed young master. I asked him if his surname was Feng and his given name was Zhou. He said yes, then I personally brought him upstairs, so..." He did not know that there were 2 people called Fingzhou. A month ago, someone had booked 2 sky rooms for a man called Fingzhou and told them his features. He said that he was a 16 or 17-year-old young man with a handsome face and liked to wear red. The innkeeper thought it was the man from before and brought him upstairs. "What? You received a guest?" The head innkeeper was also stunned. He looked at Fingzhou and hesitated and asked, young master, Fingzhou is called young master." Hearing the words of the 2, Fengzhou also knew what was going on, so she nodded. "And her name is Fengzhou, but I don't know who booked the room for me. Could it be that someone booked the wrong room? She didn't know anyone here, so who would know that she was coming? And moreover, what made her curious was, who directly admitted that it was Feng Nine who stayed in the inn. And the other party was wearing red robes like her. This made her involuntarily recall the matter of the fake ghost doctor. However, in this place, no one knew her identity. It was probably just a coincidence. This thought the head innkeeper hesitated and looked at the innkeeper. "Go upstairs and ask that guest to come down and ask him. Mistaking a guest is not a small matter. Don't offend people." Yes. The innkeeper replied and wiped his cold sweat. He quickly went upstairs to invite the sky room guest. Chapter 866. Hearing this, everyone's expressions changed. The head shopkeeper's expression didn't look too good either. What was the meaning of this? If the red-clothed young man in front of them was Fingzhou, then the one upstairs must be an imposter. But that person wasn't coming down. If the one called Fingzhou left and the one upstairs stayed, if the person who booked the room found out about this, then the responsibility would fall on them. For a moment, he was in a dilemma. Just as he was about to go upstairs himself, he heard the red-clothed young man's voice. "You're the head shopkeeper, right?" Fingzhou looked at the middle-aged man and revealed a smile. Yes, young master. You see. I'm really sorry. I'll go upstairs and take a look," he said apologetically and cupped his hands. Fengzhou smiled and said, "It's fine. I didn't book this room anyway. Also, I don't know who booked it. That person didn't leave a name or anything and I don't want to owe them a favor. Since someone is staying here, then forget it. We'll find another inn to stay in. But, if the person who booked the room can't find young master..." The head shopkeeper was a bit hesitant. Although he knew that it was good for them to back down, he was afraid that the person who booked the room would be angry. "It's fine. Let's leave it at that." She waved her hand and turned to leave. But at this time, something flew towards Langhua from the second floor. Langhua couldn't help but take a few steps back as he was hit by the hidden force of the heavy object. He let out a muffled groan and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Ling Shuang quickly stepped forward to support him. His cold gaze shot towards the second floor. Feng Jiu had already turned around and was about to take a step forward. However, when she heard movement behind her, she stopped and turned around. When she saw Langhua holding a small bag and blood flowing from the corner of his mouth, she frowned. A trace of coldness flashed through her eyes as she looked towards the second floor. "My master said he wouldn't take advantage of you. Here are 500 gold coins. Take it and find somewhere else to live." On the second floor, a black-clothed woman raised her chin slightly and looked down at Feng Jiu's trio with disdain. Seeing this scene, the two shopkeepers at the side frowned. They were also cultivators, so they could naturally see that the red-clothed young master downstairs, at Feng Jiu, did not have much cultivation. The man and woman beside him had even lower cultivation. One was only a martial grandmaster, while the other was only a beginner martial practitioner. However, the black-clothed woman standing on the second floor was only a follower, but her strength was already at the level of a great spirit master. Even if the three people downstairs were added together, they might not necessarily be her opponent. Knowing that they weren't a match for the woman upstairs, the head shopkeeper was just thinking about how to resolve the situation when he saw the red-robed young man slowly walk forward. Feng Jiu came to Langhua's side and took the bag from him. He weighed it in his hand and looked at the woman in black on the second floor. His lips curled into a smile. 500 gold coins. Isn't that too little? Hearing this, the two shopkeepers were stunned. The woman in black on the second floor was even more disdainful. Chapter 867. Anyone who entered the number 1 inn would not lack money. This red-robed young man had an extraordinary air about him. With one look, one could tell that he came from a good background. Perhaps he was the son of an aristocratic family, the prince of a small country, or perhaps he was a member of some sect. People like him were usually fighting for their dignity and not for money. Therefore, when they saw that the red-robed young man was complaining that the gold coins in his hand were too little, everyone had different expressions on their faces. They felt that they could not see through him and could not see who he was. The woman in black on the second floor scoffed and turned to leave. Not long after, she came back out again. This time, she was holding a bag that was even bigger than before and threw it at the red-robed young man. "My master said that since you think it's too little, I'll give you another 1,000 gold coins. Take the gold coins and get out of here." The woman in black's words were not polite at all. Her contemptuous expression carried a sense of superiority. With a flip of her hand, she threw the bag at Feng Jiu. The bag was filled with hidden energy and it contained 1,000 gold coins. It was aimed at Feng Jiu's heart, as if she wanted to use the weight of the gold coins to teach her a lesson. Most of the guests upstairs were from aristocratic families or great powers. Therefore, when they saw the bag of 1,000 gold coins flying out, they could see the hidden force behind the attack. However, no one made a move, no one helped, and no one stopped it. This kind of thing was too common. In a world where the strong ruled, the weak had to bow their heads and adapt if they wanted to survive. No one could help anyone. However, the red-robed young man's next move made some people's eyes flash with astonishment. They saw him reach out and catch the bag lightly. He then turned his hand inward to release the force and steadily caught the 1,000 gold coins. Those who knew the ropes could see that it was not easy to reach out to catch the bag and release the force. However, the young man had done it easily. It was obvious that he had some skills. Fingzhou took out a gold coin and held it between her index and middle finger. She raised her eyes to look at the woman in black. Her lips curled and a strange light flashed across her eyes. This is your reward. Take it to buy medicine. As soon as her voice fell, the gold coin between her fingers flew towards the woman in black. It was so fast and powerful that the woman in black was unable to dodge it, nor was she able to dodge or block it. Yes. The woman let out a muffled groan. The gold coin hit her lower left abdomen, but it didn't penetrate her flesh and take her life. It only hit her body. The power contained in the gold coin hit the woman in black, and the gold coin fell to the ground with a clang. How dare you! The black-clothed woman shouted as she stared coldly at the red-clothed Fingzhou. Although she grunted after being hit, she did not even take a step back. She did not bleed, nor was she injured. It was as if she had been hit by a rock. In her eyes, it was not a big deal. All right. Miss upstairs, don't be angry. Everyone should take a step back. Let's turn big things into small things and small things into nothing. The shopkeeper was worried that they would fight and quickly came out to smooth things over. Fingzhou glanced at the people upstairs and curled her lips. She said to Ling Shuang and Ling Hua, "Let's go." Yes. The two replied and left with her. Chapter 868. After leaving the first inn, Fingzhou brought Ling Shuang and Ling Hua to the west side of the city and checked into an inn there. After entering the room, she gestured to Ling Hua, "Ling Hua, sit down. I'll take a look at you." "Master, I'm fine. It's just a minor injury." He could only blame himself for not being strong enough to be injured. "Sit down." As she spoke, she sat down at the table and reached out to check his pulse. After a while, she withdrew her hand and said, "It's not very serious. Take some healing medicine and you'll be fine tomorrow." "Okay," he responded, revealing a happy smile. "Ling Shuang, go downstairs and ask the waiter to bring up some food and wine. We haven't eaten yet. It's almost noon." Hearing his master's words, Ling Shuang nodded, "Yes." Then he turned and walked out. "Master, we've earned 1,500 gold coins for nothing." Ling Hua smiled happily. It seemed that the person who lived in the sky room had a high status. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given out gold coins so easily. Yes. It's a waste not to take it. Although 1,500 gold coins isn't a lot, you can buy a lot of things with it. She said with a smile, took out the 2 bags of gold coins, and pushed the big bag of gold coins in front of him. "Take this. Buy whatever you want. If you follow me, you don't have to worry about not having enough money to spend." Hearing this, Ling Hua didn't refuse. He immediately took it and said happily, "Thank you, master." Not long after, Ling Shuang returned. As soon as he entered the room, Fingzhou handed him the bag of gold coins on the table. "This bag is for you." Hearing this, Ling Shuang said, "Master, I rarely use money. I don't need this much. Keep it. Only when you need it." "Sister, just take it. Master just gave me the big bag of gold coins. I'll take it all." Ling Hua said with a smile, patting the bag of gold coins in front of him. Seeing this, Ling Shuang nodded and took the gold coins. At the same time, he thanked, "Thank you, master." Ling Hua also put the gold coins into his cosmos sack. After a while, the waiter knocked on the door and brought in the food. The 3 of them ate and chatted in the room. "Master, did you use a secret technique again?" Ling Hua bit into a piece of meat and asked with bright eyes. Hearing this, Fingzhou laughed, "Again, you can tell." "I couldn't tell, but I guessed, he said with a smile after swallowing the meat. With his master's personality, how could he not be protective? Moreover, he had thrown out a gold coin to buy medicine for that woman. It was definitely not simple. Fengjiu nodded and praised with a smile, and, not bad, not bad. Lang Hua, you are indeed very careful and smart. You can guess that I played a trick when I casually threw out a gold coin. However, even if you know, those people don't. Hee, that woman won't be able to get out of bed tomorrow. She laughed mischievously. I knew it. He proudly raised his head and smiled. Ling Shuang helped Fengjiu pour wine. She, who was always quiet, quietly listened to them talk. There was a trace of gentleness in her eyes. Only when she was with the two of them would she show that kind of gentleness. Most of the time, she was as cold as an ice beauty and was full of killing intent. It made people shudder. Chapter 869. Fengjiu nodded, and there's still a month until the 3rd of March. Let's gather the information and wait. Lang Hua, accompany your brother and take a stroll around the imperial city. See if there's anything you need to buy. Master, I don't have anything I need to buy. Let Ah Hua go, I'll stay at the inn. Fengjiu smiled. What's there to guard in this inn? This is the imperial city of the Yi country. It's more prosperous than any other city. See if there's any clothes, hair accessories, rouge, or anything you like. Buy them all and bring them back. As she spoke, her gaze swept over her body. She smiled and narrowed her eyes. You're the kind of person who amazes people at first glance. However, it's really a waste to wear black clothes all day without any rouge. And, forget it. I'll accompany you tomorrow. I'll help you choose. Hearing this, Lang Hua looked at the two with a smile. These two were the most important people in his life. One was his master, and the other was his sister. They were the two people he valued the most. Master, I don't need to dress up. This is fine. Moreover, I like to wear black and don't like to wear clothes that are too eye-catching. Since she was young, she had learned how to hide her appearance and never learned how to show it. What's more, she was by her master's side to guard him. There was no need for her to dress up beautifully. On the contrary, the more inconspicuous she was, the better. So it's like this. She touched her chin and smiled. Then let's just stroll around the jewelry store like this. And, it's settled. She picked up her chopsticks and ate, motioning for the other two to eat as well. After the meal, Fengjiu motioned for the two to go back to their room to rest, while she flashed into the space. Seeing that the sleeping fire phoenix still hadn't woken up, she couldn't help but feel strange. It's been so long, why hasn't she woken up yet? However, the aura of this ball of flame seems to have become stronger. She stared at the ball of flame that wrapped around the fire phoenix. The fire phoenix inside was like a baby in its mother's womb, hugging its legs and curling up as if it was asleep. Perhaps, when it wakes up again, it will break through and become a young man. She had a feeling that perhaps its infancy was about to pass. If it entered adulthood, its strength would increase by another level, and its pressure would be incomparable to its infancy. Thinking of this, she had a faint expectation in her heart. She didn't care that it was still in a deep sleep. Picking up the tools in her space, she walked to the empty space inside and started to plow the ground. She started to sow seeds, preparing to use the space to plant some spiritual herbs and fruits. The next day, after resting, the three of them went out together. They were in a good mood and planned to walk around and enjoy the scenery of the imperial city. As for the three people in the first inn, it was a completely different scene. Why is it only you? The door of the heavenly room opened, and the red-clothed young master who had snatched the room yesterday walked out. His figure was slender, and his appearance was outstanding. If one looked closely, one could actually see that he was a beautiful woman disguised as a man. However, when the woman wore the red robe, it gave off an arrogant and haughty aura, destroying the beauty of the robe. She went to rest in the middle of the night and hasn't woken up yet. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man dressed in gray. He looked like a servant but wasn't a servant. His expression was indifferent, and he didn't show any respect to the woman dressed as a man. Chapter 870. Lowly Servant. Are you the master or am I the master? How dare you sleep until now? Her gloomy voice was filled with anger. As soon as she spoke, she pulled out a soft whip from her waist and lashed it towards the woman in black on the bed. The woman in black only wore her undergarments to sleep and had woken up a long time ago. However, she felt as if she had been injured somewhere in her body. Even breathing was painful, let alone getting up. When she heard the sound of the door being kicked open, she knew that her master was about to lose her temper again. Thus, she tried to get up. However, after trying twice, she still could not get up. She then saw her master stride in and lash the whip at her without saying a word. Whoosh! The sound of the whip sliced through the air, bringing with it a swift and fierce air current. With a slap, it landed on the woman on the bed. Only a blood-curdling scream was heard as a streak of blood appeared on the woman's white undergarments. It was clear to see how ruthless her master was and how merciless he was. Master, master. Please calm down. The woman screamed as she was swept to the ground by the whip. She fell to the ground and hugged the red-robed man's leg. Cold sweat seeped out from her forehead. Seeing this, the red-robed man was puzzled. He stared at the pale-faced woman on the ground and asked, "What happened to you?" No matter what, it was impossible for her to be unable to get up after being lashed by the whip, right? The gray-robed man who had followed her in stood by the door and watched silently. He had been sent by her family to protect her. As long as there was no fatal danger, he would not intervene. He had also watched the farce yesterday from the side. However, he had been standing by the back door at the time and did not pay much attention to the gold coin that the red-robed man had thrown at her. "Master, this servant is unable to breathe. I can't summon my spiritual power and it's so painful that I can't get out of bed. It's not my intention to make you angry. Please forgive me, master. Please don't harm your body because of this servant." Even though she had been whipped, the woman's words were still very pleasant to hear. However, it was also because of this that the red-robed man's anger dissipated. After staring at the woman on the ground for a while, he said to the gray-robed middle-aged man behind him, "Help her see what's wrong." Hearing this, the gray-clothed middle-aged man glanced at the woman on the ground before walking forward. He squatted down and checked her pulse. With this check, he couldn't help but be startled and his expression finally changed. If the meridians are injured, the flow of qi and blood will be blocked, and the circulation of qi will be obstructed. If it's light, he will be like a cripple, unable to cultivate and raise qi. If it's heavy, he will die after 3 days. As soon as he finished speaking, the woman on the ground turned pale and terrified. "Injured qi meridian. You were fine yesterday. How did you suddenly injure your meridians?" The red-clothed young master asked with a gloomy face. After this question, the woman on the ground finally remembered. Her expression was filled with anger and hatred. "It's that person from yesterday, that young man called Fingzhou who wears the same red robes as master. He must be the one who hurt this servant. Didn't you say that the person didn't go upstairs? How did he hurt you?" At this moment, the gray-clothed man standing to the side recalled, "Is it that gold coin?" At that time, he only heard a muffled groan, but didn't care. Who would have thought that the gold coin at that time would actually injure a great spirit master's qi meridian? That person's methods were quite good. Chapter 871. Yes, it was that gold coin. At that time, it hit my body and fell to the ground. It only hit me once, so I didn't pay much attention to it. I didn't expect that person to hurt my meridians. Master, he didn't just hurt me, he also hurt Master's face. The woman on the ground said anxiously, hoping that her master could help her get revenge and not let that person have an easy time. If her meridians were hurt and could not be healed, then even if she lived, her life would be ruined. A single gold coin can hurt someone to this extent. The red-clothed man looked at the gray-clothed man and asked. That's right. Meridians are the easiest to hurt, but they are also the hardest to hurt because they are limited by time. Every hour, the meridians are different. Even if you know which meridians are going at which time, you won't be able to hurt the meridians if you make a mistake. However, once it is hurt, it can't be healed by ordinary people. As he spoke, he looked at the woman on the ground and said, although that person hurt her meridians, it should be considered light. He didn't intend to take her life. However, if she can't be healed, she will be like an ordinary person who can't cultivate in the future. Find that person for me. The red-clothed man said in a gloomy voice, he took my money and dared to hurt my people. He has guts. I'm afraid that will be difficult. The gray-clothed man said, we aren't familiar with this place. It won't be easy to find someone in the imperial city. Hearing this, the red-clothed man's face darkened. He flicked his sleeve and said, then go to the mercenary market and issue a mission. I don't believe that I can't find that person. Hearing this, the gray-clothed man hesitated and said, that person should have some background. I'm afraid that's not appropriate. Not appropriate. The red-clothed man said angrily, if I don't vent my anger, I'll feel that it's inappropriate. With that, he walked out. Seeing this, the gray-clothed man glanced sharply at the woman on the ground and coldly turned around to leave. In the end, he really went to the mercenary market and issued a mission to find Fingzhou. As for the west side of the city, Fingzhou was eating at a small stall while Tun Yun was lying on the ground beside him. As for Leng Shuang and Leng Hua, they had yet to return from gathering information. The mercenary guild in the imperial city was extremely well informed. It could be said that after the mission was issued, there were people who accepted it. Compared to outsiders, they knew better how to find a person in the imperial city. Thus, when the people from the mercenary guild saw the red-clothed youth eating at a stall in the west of the city, they sent someone back to deliver the news while they watched from a distance. With Fengzhou's sharp senses, she knew when those people had their eyes on her. However, who would have their eyes on her when she had just arrived at this place? Seeing that the other party did not show up, she did not mind. After eating, she sat down and drank a cup of tea, waiting for Leng Shuang and the others to come back. However, she never expected that the red-clothed young man would arrive before Leng Shuang and Leng Hua. A mercenary pointed at Fingzhou who was sitting at the stall and asked the red-clothed young man and the middle-aged man, "It's that young man, right?" The red-clothed young man had never seen Fingzhou before, so he looked at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man glanced at him and nodded, yes. As soon as he finished speaking, he gave the reward to the mercenary. Chapter 872. The young man in red walked forward. Before he could even get close to Fingzhou, the whip in his hand lashed out at Fingzhou. At the same time, he cursed, "What a blind thing." Whoosh! Fingzhou immediately dodged the whip. He looked at the person in red and could not help but frown. He was not polite when he opened his mouth. "Crazy woman, what are you doing?" Upon hearing Fingzhou's words, the cross-dressing young man in red was furious. "How dare you be so arrogant after hurting my people? See how I'll deal with you." As soon as she finished speaking, she pulled back her whip. At the same time, her spiritual power surged. With a whoosh, the whip lashed out again, aiming for Fengjiu's face. She felt that this young man was even prettier than her, and he was also wearing the same red robes as her. He was really an eyesore. Coupled with the anger in her heart, she wanted to destroy that handsome and flawless face. Upon hearing this and seeing the woman's red clothes, Fengjiu guessed that she was the person who had thrown money at him. However, he did not expect that the young man in red was also a woman in male disguise. However, there were too many flaws in her makeup. He could tell at a glance that she was a woman. With a whoosh, the whip lashed out with spiritual power. With a bang, it broke the small wooden table into 2 pieces. The couple in the stall was so shocked that they hugged each other and hid behind them. Tun Yun, who was originally lying on the side, stood up when he saw this scene. The round little ball arched its body like a hedgehog, and all the hair on its body stood up. A pair of bloodthirsty and ferocious eyes stared at the arrogant woman in red. A low growl came from its mouth. It sounded like it came from its nose and throat. It sounded like the growl of a ferocious beast. The middle-aged man in gray who had followed behind them looked at Tun Yun with a trace of surprise in his eyes. He could not tell what kind of beast this little pet was. Looking at its fluffy fur, it looked like a dog but not a dog. It looked like a lion but not a lion. Bastard, scram! The red-dressed woman was enraged after Fengjiu dodged her attack. She vented her anger on the grinning Tun Yun and lashed out with her whip. No! The middle-aged man shouted and stopped her from lashing the whip at the pet because he saw the bloodthirsty and ferocious look in the pet's eyes. That kind of light clearly belonged to an extremely ferocious beast. He was worried that if she lashed the whip at it, the little beast would attack. However, even though he opened his mouth to stop her, he was still too slow. At the same time the whip lashed out, the little beast let out a low growl and leaped up. Its round little body was as agile as a leopard at this moment. As it leaped into the air, it revealed its sharp claws and charged towards the woman. Ah! The woman cried out in pain. Her face paled and she quickly retreated. However, Tun Yun's claws had left a few bloody scratches on the back of her hand that was holding the whip. The scratches were so deep that the bone could be seen. When the middle-aged man saw the wounds on the back of the woman's hand, his entire aura turned gloomy. He immediately pulled the woman behind him to prevent the little beast from hurting her a second time. His sharp and cold gaze swept across the little beast that was baring its fangs and flashing its claws. He stared at the young man in red who was calmly watching the show and asked in a gloomy voice, "Do you not want your little pet anymore?" Chapter 873. Fengjiu crossed his arms and glanced at him. Then, he glanced at the woman's bloody hand and sneered, "If you didn't provoke it, would it bite you? Kill him." The woman's face revealed a fierce expression. She took out medicine to bandage her wound and ordered the man in gray beside her. "TSK, do you really think the Imperial City is yours? Shouting and yelling in the streets and alleys, you're really shameless," Fengjiu said casually. Looking at the woman's furious expression, he curled his lips and revealed a mocking smile. "Even if I kill you, no one will dare to say anything." She simply bandaged the wound on her hand and pulled out her whip again, attacking Fengjiu. Seeing this, Fengjiu's eyes flashed and he coldly snorted, "It seems that if I don't teach you a lesson, you won't learn." As soon as he finished speaking, the red figure dashed out and dodged the woman's whip. In an instant, he appeared behind the woman. With a flick of his hand, he snatched her whip and tore off the woman's red clothes. These red clothes are really an eyesore when you wear them. Ah! The woman cried out in surprise when her clothes were ripped off and she quickly retreated. The man in gray beside her saw this and was about to step forward, but he saw the little beast pounce at him with a low growl. He immediately flicked his sleeve and shouted, bastard. Get lost. A stream of air visible to the naked eye came out from his sleeve. When the people on the street and the shops on both sides of the street thought that the little beast would be swept out, they saw the little beast crouch down and leap towards the middle-aged man. Its sharp claws instantly scratched several bloody marks on the middle-aged man's shoulder. Hiss! The man in gray gasped and his eyes widened in disbelief. He quickly retreated a few steps and stared at the little beast with vigilance and shock. This was not an ordinary little beast. Could it be a sacred beast? But how could a sacred beast be so small? Shio! Paw! The whip whipped out with a sharp sound and landed on the woman's body. At the same time, a bloody mark appeared and a scream pierced through the sky. Ah! The woman's red clothes had been taken off and she was only wearing her undergarments. At this moment, the burning pain on her body caused her entire face to contort. She stared at the red-clothed youth in panic and anger. I'm from the Shangwan clan of a first-class country, how dare you hurt me? I will exterminate your entire clan. At this point, she was still clamoring, completely unaware that her life was now in Fengzhou's hands. Moreover, distant water could not put out a nearby fire. Even if she announced her family's name, it would be of no use. In truth, it wasn't completely useless. At the very least, some of the surrounding cultivators were secretly calculating after hearing the woman's words. Someone asked, is it the Shangwan clan, the aristocratic alchemist clan of a first-class country? Not bad. The woman replied proudly, this time, my family sent me to participate in the pill appraisal convention. If any of you can help me kill this bastard, I'll make sure he doesn't have to worry about pills. Hearing this, the eyes of the surrounding cultivators lit up. It was a good opportunity to establish a relationship with the alchemy aristocrat. No matter what, they would definitely be able to obtain extraordinary pills. Chapter 874. Of course there is. Look, this is the identity medallion that all disciples of the Shangwan clan have. If I say I'm a member of the Shangwan clan, then I'm a member of the Shangwan clan. Who dares to pretend to be a member of the Shangwan clan? How about it? Who dares to take this job? Take his head for me. She arrogantly flashed her identity medallion and revealed her identity in front of everyone, all for the sake of taking Fengzhou's life. Furthermore, she was very confident that as long as her identity as a member of the Shangwan clan was exposed, even the strongest cultivator would want to establish a relationship with her. Shio! A whip lashed out, and with a shio sound, the crown that held her hair up fell to the ground. She hugged her head and cried out in alarm. Her ink-black hair fell loosely to the ground, revealing her feminine and delicate appearance. Ah! You actually dare to attack me! She cried out in alarm and glared angrily. She could not believe that someone would dare to attack her after hearing of her family's illustrious reputation. Shangwan clan. Fengzhou raised her brows, and a wisp of light that others couldn't understand flowed in her clear eyes. She swung the whip in her hand, and it instantly swept out and coiled around the woman's waist with a slap, and then she pulled her over. The woman was stunned. Before she could react, Fengzhou had already hugged her waist in a teasing manner. He even used the hand holding the whip to gently lift her chin. You're really from the Shangwan clan? He lifted her chin and looked at her, then leaned close to her ear and slowly said, even if you're from the Shangwan clan, you shouldn't provoke me, do you understand? She was stunned. Her entire body was dazed, and she did not know how to react. She had always been arrogant, and no one had ever dared to approach her like this. Suddenly being hugged by a man like this and even speaking to her ear, she only felt her mind explode and go blank. Young Miss Shangwan, I'm a Foundation Establishment Row cultivator. Today, I'll help young Miss Shangwan vent your anger and teach this arrogant youth a lesson. A figure rushed out from the crowd. With a twist of the sharp sword in his hand, he attacked Fingzhou with killing intent. Although he said he was teaching this youth a lesson, anyone could tell that this person was going to kill him. Fingzhou coldly glanced at that person, then directly pushed the woman away. At the same time, he pulled back his whip and lashed it towards that person's lower body. With a "shio" sound, the whip wrapped around his leg, and with a "pa" sound, the person holding the sword. Pfft! Fingzhou sneered, "You dare to come forward with such little skill? You really don't know death." Pa! With that, the whip in her hand lashed out viciously at the male cultivator. She would teach these kinds of people a lesson whenever she saw one. Hiss! Ah! Before the man had time to get up, he saw the whip lashing at him. The hidden force on the whip scratched his clothes, and the whip hit his flesh. He felt his flesh split open, and the pain made it hard for him to breathe. "Stop, young. Please spare my life. Please spare my life." Seeing the Foundation establishment cultivator begging for mercy on the ground after being whipped, the restless cultivator's eyes flashed, and their gazes fell on the red-clothed youth wielding the whip. Every lash of the whip contained visible spiritual power. They were almost certain that every time the whip landed, the cultivator's skin would be split open. Furthermore, a Foundation establishment cultivator was actually unable to resist in front of this youth. It was clear that this youth was hiding his strength. Chapter 875. The woman from the Shangwan clan was stunned. Seeing that a Foundation establishment cultivator wasn't a match for the youth, she couldn't help but be flabbergasted and retreat step by step. She was certain that the youth was hiding his cultivation. However, no matter how outstanding a youth's strength was, he couldn't have easily beaten a Foundation establishment cultivator to the point where she couldn't dodge or get up, right? Could it be that this youth wasn't a youth at all, but an old monster? The more she thought about it, the more likely it seemed. She looked at the gray-robed middle-aged man and saw that he had been beaten into a sorry state by a small beast. His body was even covered in blood. "You want to leave?" Fengzhou glanced at the woman from the corner of his eye, wanting to leave. He curled his lips and attacked her with his whip. However, he didn't manage to touch the woman this time, because the whip was caught by a gray-robed old man who suddenly appeared. "Since you've already vented your anger, you should stop." The gray-robed old man held the whip, preventing Fengzhou from hitting the woman again. Third elder. When she saw the old man, a trace of fear appeared in the woman's eyes. She restrained her arrogance and stood respectfully behind the old man, not daring to move. When the gray-robed man saw the old man, his heart sank. He quickly withdrew his hand and retreated behind the old man. "Greetings, third elder." "Humph." The old man harumphed. His sharp gaze swept past the woman and landed on the middle-aged man. "I told you to follow me, and you followed me like this? She's not sensible, and you're not sensible either. How absurd." The two were scolded, but they didn't dare to retort. They could only lower their heads and listen. When Fengzhou saw this, his eyes flickered. He sized up the old man and saw that he was a nascent soul cultivator. Furthermore, from their words, it seemed that this old man was an elder of the Shangwan clan. "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and apologize to young Master Feng." The old man shouted at the two people standing behind him. "Third elder, you clearly." That woman was unwilling to accept this, but before she could finish her words, she met that pair of stern eyes. She could not help but lower her head and swallow the words that were about to come out of her mouth. She looked at Fengzhou and gritted her teeth. "I'm sorry. Young Master Feng, please forgive our rudeness." The gray-clothed man stepped forward and bowed. He did not dare to disobey the third elder's words. "Excuse me, young master." The old man nodded slightly and said to Fingzhou. Seeing this, Fingzhou did not say anything. He raised his hand and threw the whip back. "All right, this young master is magnanimous and will not bicker with a lowly person." She turned around and walked over to the stall. She gave the couple 2 gold coins as compensation for the broken table and asked them to bring another pot of tea. Only then did she call Tunyun back. She walked over to the unbroken table and sat down. "You two go back first." The old man turned around and said to the 2 of them, indicating for them to leave first. "Yes." The 2 of them didn't dare to say anything else. After answering, they returned to the inn. After the 2 of them left, the old man stepped forward and came to Fingzhou's table. He looked at his handsome face and asked with a smile, "Young Master Feng, may this old man sit down?" Fingzhou glanced at him and asked, "What do you want?" This old man looked at her with a strange gaze. Chapter 876. She watched as the old man sat down, poured himself a cup of tea, took a sip, then put it down and looked at her. She sharply noticed that his gaze seemed to be probing. "May I know which country young Master Feng is from? The surname Feng is really quite special and rare." The old man looked at Fingzhou and asked with a smile. However, he paused for a moment and laughed again. "Ha ha ha, I forgot to introduce myself. I am Shengguan Dejing, the 3rd elder of the Shengguan family." Hearing this, Fengzhou's heart skipped a beat. She said, "I'm from the Phoenix dynasty." Indeed, there are very few people with the surname Feng. Even in our country, only our bloodline has the surname Feng. "Oh. Phoenix dynasty. May I ask, what rank is it?" "9th rank." She continued, "More than a year ago, it was called the Glorious Sun Country." The old man's expression changed when he heard this. He looked at Fingzhou with a strange gaze. "I see." Due to the difference in rank and distance between countries, he did not know much about some dynasties. In fact, he had never even heard of them, especially when there were too many 9th-rank countries. Young Master Feng is also here to participate in the Pill Appraisal Convention on the 3rd of March. Could it be that young Master Feng is also an alchemist? He asked casually while stroking his beard. She took a sip of tea and said casually, "As far as I know, the Pill Appraisal Convention of the Yi country's imperial city doesn't stipulate that only alchemists can participate. On the contrary, as long as one has a pill in hand, they can participate." "That's right. The Pill Appraisal Convention is to appraise pills, not to select an alchemist. It's also not a competition between alchemists. Therefore, as long as the quality of the pill is outstanding, anyone can participate." Speaking of this, he smiled and continued, "I believe young Master Feng also knows that our Shengguan family is an alchemy family. In fact, this time I secretly followed you here not only to make sure the juniors don't cause trouble, but also to recruit some talented alchemists. If young Master Feng is an alchemist, you can come to our Shengguan family to give it a try." Fengzhou smiled faintly but did not say anything. The old man didn't say anything else when he saw this. Instead, he sat for a while and chatted for a while before standing up and taking his leave. Fengzhou supported her cheek with one hand and tapped the table with the other. A faint light flashed through her clear eyes as she looked in the direction that the old man left. No one knew what she was thinking. "Master." Ling Shuang and Leng Hua quickly walked back. They rushed back because they heard that there was a fight here. But when they saw that their master was fine, they felt relieved. "You're back." She glanced at the 2 of them and asked, "How did the investigation go?" "Master, many people from other countries have come to the Pill Appraisal Convention in the Yi country's imperial city. Some of them are from aristocratic families and imperial families from first-tier countries. We heard that among the alchemists who will be appraising pills, aside from the alchemists sent by the Shengguan family from a first-tier country, there is also the Tianji elder's disciple, young master Mo Qin. Ling Hua paused for a moment before continuing. The pill appraisal convention will be held at the pill appraisal hall. Aside from status, those who wish to enter must also have at least a third-tier pill in hand. Those with pills below the third tier cannot enter and the security will be extremely tight. Also, Chapter 877. Hearing this, Fengjiu was slightly stunned. How come I didn't know about this? Someone had already spread the news about something that even she didn't know about. Who knew that she would be participating in the pill appraisal convention? Although she was here, she didn't plan to use her identity as the ghost doctor. Now, there was news that the ghost doctor would be participating. So instead of saying that everyone is here for the pill appraisal convention, it's more accurate to say that they're here for the ghost doctor. Especially after the ghost doctor's latest beauty pill was auctioned off at an astronomical price in Enchanting black market, the various powers have become even more interested in the ghost doctor. Hearing this, she couldn't help but laugh. Even the beauty pill is known about. Who won the auction for the beauty pill in the end? It was a princess from a first-class country's imperial family. After winning the auction, she presented it to her mother. It said that the imperial concubine was originally neglected and not favored, but after taking the beauty pill, her beauty returned to that of a young girl. She was in the limelight for a while and regained the king's favor. Now, women from various countries have their eyes on the beauty pill. Some have even asked around for the ghost doctor's whereabouts and found the black market. However, the black market is very secretive about the ghost doctor's identity. I didn't expect that the black market's president would have the ability to let people from a first-class country know about the beauty pill being auctioned off in a sixth-tier country. He even made a name for himself. His efficiency is not bad. She smiled as she spoke. Feeling that this wasn't the place to talk, she decided to pay for the tea and return to the inn with them. Sir, you don't have to pay anymore. It's enough, it's enough. Seeing that Fengjiu was about to pay, the couple at the stall hurriedly stopped him. Fengjiu smiled and tossed out a silver coin. This is the money for the tea, take it. With that, he led them back. After returning to the inn, the two men told her everything they heard. In the end, Lang Hua said, Mistress, the person who booked the room should be that Sir Mo Qin. We passed by the number 1 inn on our way back and happened to hear the innkeeper mention it. Then it should be him. He was the one who told me about the pill appraisal convention. At that time, I didn't accept his invitation, so I think he guessed that I would still come. She smiled, thinking that this Mo Qin was really strange. Did he treat her differently just because of a few words? However, she always felt that he didn't make it clear when he said those things. He was probably still holding back, as if there was something she didn't know. Lang Hua couldn't help asking, Mistress, who will be participating in the pill appraisal convention? Fengjiu's identity is enough. As for the identity of the ghost doctor, let them wait. She instructed, Mistress Yun's this place, as much as possible, stay in Est, U2Ts. There are too many people here. It's easy to get into trouble. Mistress. They had already prepared everything they needed, so they really didn't need to go out much recently. Moreover, they went out to ask around today and found that there were really many people from other countries. Those people from the first and second-class countries were so arrogant that no one dared to provoke them. They could be found everywhere, teaching people a lesson at the slightest provocation. Knock knock, knock knock. Just then, someone knocked on the door. When the 3 people in the room heard the sound, they looked at each other. Fengjiu gestured and Lang Hua walked up to the inner door to inquire. Chapter 878. Is Master Feng inside? This Du has come to pay his respects. The voice from outside sounded like a middle-aged man. Leng Hua looked back at Feng Zhou. Seeing her nod, he opened the door. As soon as the door was opened, he saw 3 people standing outside. One of them was a middle-aged man, while the other 2 were old. Who are you? Leng Hua stood by the door and asked. We're from the black market. The middle-aged man answered, looking inside with a hint of excitement. Hearing that they were from the black market, Leng Hua was startled. Then he heard his master's voice from inside. Let them in. Please come in. Leng Hua turned slightly and invited the 3 people in. At this time, Ling Shuang walked out of the room and stood guard outside. Seeing this, Leng Hua followed the 3 people in and stood behind his master. Master Feng, I'm the president of the black market. My surname is Du. These 2 are the elders of the black market. When we heard that Master Feng was here, we specially came to pay our respects. As the middle-aged man spoke, he cupped his hands and bowed to the youth sitting at the table. You knew that I was here. Fengjiu raised her eyebrows and looked at the 3, you know who I am. Hearing this, the 3 people's eyes flashed. Master Feng is the holder of the Black Order in our black market. All the higher-ups of the black market know Master Feng's identity. Since you know, don't you know that there are many pairs of eyes watching? Yet you came here to see me. Are you deliberately causing trouble for me? Her voice was cold, and there was a trace of displeasure on her face. Hearing this, the 3 of them hurriedly said, We don't dare to cause trouble for young master. We came here to avoid being noticed by others. Young master, don't worry, no one will notice. However, other than visiting young master today, we also have something to report to young master. Fengjiu glanced at them and said, Speak. Recently, due to the sky-high price of the beauty pill, it has attracted the attention of many forces. Many forces are already looking for the whereabouts of the ghost doctor. Because the ghost doctor once removed her mask in the Enchanting kingdom, many people have seen her appearance. According to what we know, some forces already have a portrait of the ghost doctor. Hearing this, she gently tapped her hand on the table, making a knocking sound. She asked casually, in other words, my identity is about to be exposed. As for the exposure of the ghost doctor's identity, it wasn't that she hadn't thought about it. After all, when she had taken off her mask back then, she had already expected this to happen. However, the power of the black market was still very strong. After concealing this news for so long, it was about time. Yes, someone from a first-class country is involved in the investigation. We can't hide this for long. It doesn't matter if it's exposed. Just make sure that no one dares to touch my country. She stared at the president of the black market and said. Hearing this, the president of the black market smiled, Don't worry, Master Feng. With the protection of the black market, even a first-class country wouldn't dare to offend you. Fengjiu glanced at the 3 of them and asked, Where did the news of the ghost doctor participating in the pill appraisal convention come from? The news didn't come from the black market. We're currently investigating. However, it's very likely that it came from the Yi Kingdom's imperial family. Chapter 879. They chatted in the room for about an hour before leaving. Perhaps it was just as they said, they came in a low-key manner and did not attract the attention of other forces. Therefore, no one came to disturb Fengjiu during this period of time. In the following period of time, the 3 of them rarely left the inn. When Fengjiu and Leng Hua were practicing, Ling Shuang was responsible for guarding them and not allowing anyone to disturb them. She was now a great martial mentor and a monk at the peak of the Black Realm. She only needed an opportunity to enter the martial Grandmaster realm. Her master had given her a bottle of potion that could help her break through. However, she did not want to break through during this period of time because she had not been in the peak stage for long. Therefore, she listened to her master and waited until everything was ready. Lang Hua devoted himself to practicing and practiced whenever he had time. With the help of the potion, his progress was great. As for Fingzhou, when he was practicing in the space, he did not forget to turn over the soil, plant the herbs, and water the plants. Time passed quickly. Finally, it was the 3rd day of March. For the various forces in the imperial city, this day was exciting and anticipated. For the common people who only wanted 3 meals a day, this day was livelier than usual. Fingzhou and the other 2 went to the alchemy hall early in the morning. When they arrived, there was already a long queue. The 3 of them did not line up. Instead, they entered through the back door with a token given to them by the black market president. After entering, they saw that the interior of the alchemy hall was very large and could accommodate nearly 1,000 people. The alchemy appraisal platform was about 1 meter above the ground. In addition to the seats in the hall, there were also 10 VIP rooms. Because there were so many people, no one noticed Fingzhou and the other 2. They all found their seats according to the tokens in their hands and sat down, waiting for the alchemy appraisal convention to begin. After some of them sat down, they began to talk. I heard that the ghost doctor will be here too. Moreover, the number 1 heaven room was specially reserved for him. I heard that he is just a young man. That's incredible. Besides being a pharmacist, he is also an alchemist. That's right. Comparisons are odious. I heard that many powers have come for the ghost doctor today. Among them, there are many powers from first-class countries. It seems that even the royal family has come. Other than the first room, there is 1 room that belongs to the royal family of our country. The other 8 rooms are all occupied by people from first-class countries. That's normal. Even if it's just a family from a first-class country, their status is still extraordinary. Look, the pill appraisers today are all heavyweights. Other than the Shangguan family's elder, there's also Elder Tianji's disciple, a pill saint, and that they entered through the back door and went upstairs directly from the back, almost avoiding the people downstairs. Therefore, when the 3 of them walked into Sky Room number 1, many people still didn't know that there was someone in the room. However, when some of the people who were paying attention saw Fingzhou and the other 2 enter Room 1, their eyes lit up. Some of them even took out a portrait and compared it on the spot. The portrait of the ghost doctor could be said to have been obtained by these powers first. And the red-robed young man from earlier looked exactly like the person in the portrait. It's him, right? A middle-aged man whispered to the old man beside him. Yes, there should be no mistake. The old man nodded. Chapter 880. The old man nodded and turned to enter the room to report to the people inside. At the same time, the other people who had arrived earlier also noticed and reported to their masters. Hence, before the pill appraisal convention had even begun, there were already people knocking on the door to pay their respects. Unfortunately, Fingzhou did not even give them the chance to step into the room. She sat in the room and ate some tea and snacks. Then, she walked around the room and finally laid down on a soft couch. Through a small slit in the window, she looked down at the crowd below. When her gaze landed on the immortal-like figure who was walking up to the pill appraisal stage, Mo Qin seemed to sense it and looked over at her. However, when he saw the location of the room, a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. He had expected her to come, but he did not expect her to be the ghost doctor. However, when he thought about her medical skills, he understood. As the host announced the start of the pill appraisal convention, people began to present their pills for evaluation. Seeing that the pill appraisal convention had already begun, Ling Hua could not help but look at Fingzhou. Master, I don't think we've presented our pills yet. There's no hurry, let's wait and see. The main event is coming up. She curled her lips into a smile and calmly watched the pill appraisal convention. After about 2 hours, only one pill was left on the stage for evaluation. Hence, the host raised his voice and asked, "Is there anyone else whose pill is comparable to this level 4 vitality pill?" The hall was very quiet because everyone in the hall had already brought their pills up for evaluation. Only the last pill was of the highest grade and the best quality. "There is." The voice came from the heavenly room. When the owner of the level 4 vitality pill heard that voice, his heart could not help but skip a beat. Even though he knew that this pill appraisal convention would not be so simple, he could not help but look forward to it. After all, this was a chance to make a name for himself. As long as he showed his face here, he would be famous in all the countries. His status would also rise with the tide. Even some powerful cultivators would have to treat him with respect. However, he knew that in addition to the alchemists and forces of various countries, the ghost doctor, who had recently become famous everywhere, had also come. When it came to the ghost doctor, it really made people respect and hate him. They respected him for his superb medical skills, his talent, and his ability to refine medicine and pills. They hated him for stealing their limelight and cutting off their chance to stand out. The guard of the heavenly room came forward with a tray and placed the pills on the appraisal platform. "This is a level 4 spirit congealing pill." Then, he retreated to the side. The appraisers looked at them one by one. After comparing them, they whispered a few words. In the end, the level 4 vitality pill was defeated. Then, the people of the heavenly room took out their pills to compete. Some of them were defeated, and then they took out better ones. Another 2 hours passed in a row. The people of the 9 rooms heavenly room all took out their pills for appraisal and competition. Even the black market from a first-class country also took out their pills. But at this time, the heavenly room one was still quiet, without any movement. Could it be that the ghost doctor saw that the level of the pill was too high and retreated? For a moment, everyone had doubts in their hearts. Until, after several fierce competitions, the Shangguan family from a first-class country took the lead with a level 5 pill. Chapter 881. The first heaven room presents the 5 elemental pill for the competition. A middle-aged man who was hosting the competition raised his voice after reading the information in his hands. There was a faint trace of excitement in his voice, as if he was afraid that the people around him could not hear him clearly. His voice was laced with spiritual energy, so the moment he spoke, it was clearly heard by the thousands of people around him. 5 elemental pill. What kind of pill is that? I've never heard of it. What 5 elemental pill? Why didn't they report the pill's grade? I've been refining pills for so long, but I've never heard of any 5 elemental pill. First heaven room, wasn't it said to be the ghost doctor? Does that mean that the ghost doctor is really here? If it's the ghost doctor's pill, it probably won't be simple either. That's right, from his medicine to the beauty-nourishing pill, none of his pills are ordinary. Furthermore, it said that his items all have a mark, so no one can fake them. I wonder what effects this 5 elemental pill has. I've never heard of this pill before. In an instant, there were endless discussions, all trying to guess what kind of pill the 5 elemental pill was. Trying to guess what kind of person the ghost doctor was. Some of them stared at the pill appraisal platform, while others stared at the first heaven room. The atmosphere had become even more expectant after the first heaven room presented the pill. Compared to the confusion of the others, the pill appraisers' expressions changed slightly, and a strange look flashed across their eyes. Especially the third elder of the Shangguan family, who was looking at the woman in black who presented the pill, he was even more astonished. Was it that red-robed youth? That youth called Fingzhou. He was the ghost doctor. Ling Shuang placed the pill on the pill appraisal platform and said, "This is the 5-elemental pill, a pill that can allow an ordinary person without spiritual roots to develop spiritual roots after eating it." After saying that, she retreated to the side. However, when she said that a person without spiritual roots could develop spiritual roots after eating it, the entire pill appraisal hall went into an uproar. Did I hear wrongly? A person without spiritual roots can develop spiritual roots after eating it. Is this true? Isn't this too heaven-defying? I've never heard of a person without spiritual roots having the chance to cultivate. If what she said is true, then the value of this pill is really incredible. That's right. This is a medicinal pill that can change a person's life. It's too heaven-defying. Everyone was talking at once. The whole scene was as lively as a market. What demeanor! What calmness! All of that was thrown to the back of their minds. Even the people in the heavenly room were the same. After hearing those words, they were shocked and stood up one after another. There was actually such a heaven-defying pill in this world. While the crowd was engaged in a heated discussion, the appraisers at the pill appraisal table weren't idling around either. After examining the pill, they passed it to another. They used a pair of tweezers to hold the pill in their hands, examining it from its color to its smell to its veins. "Young Master Mo Chin, what do you think?" The third elder of the Shengguan clan looked at the white-robed Mo Chin beside him and asked gently. When the others heard this, their gazes also fell on the two of them. "I've heard of the 5 elements pill before. It's an ancient pill recipe, but it's been lost for many years. I just didn't expect to see a 5 elements pill again today." Chapter 882. His meaning was clear. In other words, this 5-elemental pill belonged to Dan Wang, the champion of today's competition. The other appraisers nodded at his words, indicating that they had no objections because that was indeed the case. They were more experienced than everyone else here, so they had heard of this 5-elemental pill before. What was different was that they had only heard of it in the past, but today, they witnessed it with their own eyes. No matter how they looked at it, this 5-elemental pill was the best out of all the other pills here today. Naturally, it was widely expected to win the competition. And so, this pill appraisal convention that lasted for several hours came to an end after Fengjiu presented his 5-elemental pill. Without a doubt, she took first place. When Ling Shuang returned with the pill and the prizes, he was followed by a few people. The appraisers, including Mo Chen, followed him to the door. After Ling Shuang entered, they waited outside the door. Inside the room, Fengjiu put away the pill and looked at the prizes. Apart from 3 extremely rare spirit egg fruits, there were also 2 bags of precious spirit herb seeds, several priceless herbs, and a 500-year-old ginseng. There are quite a lot of prizes. Some of these things can't be bought outside even if you have the money. She looked at the prizes before finally putting them away. "Master, the appraisers are waiting outside. They would like to see you," Ling Shuang said, looking at her joyful face. Fengjiu took a sip of tea, then said, "Let them in." "Yes." Ling Shuang walked to the door and opened it. However, when the door opened, there were obviously more people inside. Seeing this, she turned to the appraisers and said, "My master invites you in." The appraisers couldn't help but smile at this. Meanwhile, the others behind them had different expressions on their faces. Someone asked, "Miss, please help us inform our master that we would also like to pay the ghost doctor a visit." "My apologies, my master is very busy." Having said that, he invited the appraisers into his room and closed the door behind him, completely ignoring their stiff expressions. Out of the 4 appraisers, Fengjiu recognized 2 of them. When the Shengguan family's 3rd elder saw that it was indeed Fengjiu in the room, the smile on his face deepened. He stepped forward and cupped his hands in greeting. Young Master Feng, we meet again. Please take a seat. Fengzhou nodded and invited them to sit. Mo Chen sat beside her. When he saw her half-smiling gaze fall on him, he calmly shifted his gaze away. The other two appraisers were also from a Tier 1 country. After meeting Fengzhou, they introduced themselves and asked if Fengzhou was interested in developing in their countries. Fengzhou chatted with them for about an hour before she said to them, the pill appraisal convention has ended and I should be leaving in the next 2 days. If fate allows it in the future, I'll treat all of you to a drink. Hearing this, the appraisers understood what she meant. They stood up and bid her farewell. When they stepped out, they saw that the others were still surrounding them, so they left on their own accord. Inside the room, Fengzhou looked at Mo Chen who was sitting there motionlessly and asked, You're not leaving? It's not the first time we've met. Why are you being so distant? Mo Chen replied gently. His gaze fell on her face as he asked, When are you going back? I'll go with you. Chapter 883. From what you're saying, it sounds like you don't want me to go to the academy. His voice was calm and his tone was gentle but cold. Hee, how could that be? Whether you go or not, it doesn't really matter to me. She stood up as she spoke and dusted off her robes. She looked at him and said, I'm currently staying at an inn in the west of the city. Now that the pill appraisal convention has ended, I said that I'd be leaving in 2 days, but I plan to leave now. Do you really want to come along? Then hurry back and pack your things. I'm wearing light clothes. He stood up as well. However, I don't think we can leave now. Other than the imperial family of country, there are also people from a Tier 1 country waiting outside. That's easy. We'll leave through the window. She gestured to the window on the side. The window at the back faces the back of the pill appraisal hall. There's no one there. As she spoke, she led Leng Hua and Leng Shuang to the window and left through the back. Seeing this, Mo Chen's lips curled up imperceptibly. He found it amusing and left through the window with her. Outside the room, the people waiting outside waited for a long time but no one came out. Thinking that young Master Mo Chen had not come out after entering the room, they asked, They're still inside, right? They shouldn't have left, right? This room doesn't have a back door. They should still be inside, right? It's true that this room doesn't have a back door but there's a back window. They couldn't have left through the window to avoid us, right? This person's words stunned everyone. They found it unbelievable. Wasn't leaving through the window a little too degrading? However, it was said that the ghost doctor had a strange personality. She might do things that they wouldn't. Hence, when there was no response after knocking on the door, someone pushed the door open and entered. The room was empty and there wasn't even a shadow in sight. However, the window at the back was open. Did they really leave through the window? Everyone was stunned and in disbelief. Without giving anyone time to react, Fengzhou and the others returned to the inn and brought Tun Yun along. They left the imperial city and headed back, but when everyone heard the news and rushed to the inn, they were still a step too late. They still didn't see her. On the mountain path, they rested on the grass after walking for a while. Fengzhou sat cross-legged and looked at Mo Chen who was sitting beside her. She smiled and asked, If you leave with me, will they say that you're with me? That you're colluding with each other to take the prize? Hearing this, Mo Chen looked at her and instead of answering, she asked, Were you really the one who refined the 5-elemental pill? Of course I refined it. Where else would I have gotten it? If it were anyone else, they wouldn't have been able to do it. But she could always make the impossible possible. Master, have some pastries to fill your stomach. Leng Hua took out a box of pastries and placed it in front of the two. He smiled at Imo-chin and said, "Master, have some too. You won't be hungry on the way. When did you buy these? How come I didn't know?" Fengzhou's eyes lit up. She took a piece and ate it while saying to Imo-chin, "Don't be shy. Help yourself." Chapter 884. Lenghua, no wonder my father told me to bring you wherever I go. I really don't have to worry about what you do. Cultivate well, and when I go to the Empire in the future, I'll bring you and your sister along. You'll be my housekeeper then. She smiled and narrowed her eyes. Hearing this, Lenghua was delighted. He immediately replied, "Don't worry, master. I'll definitely cultivate well." Imo-chin ate the pastries elegantly. It was as if he wasn't in the wilderness, but in a luxurious hall. He sat upright and slowly tasted the pastries. When he heard their conversation, he didn't even raise his eyes as he said, "Before you reach the nascent soul stage, I don't recommend you go to the Empire. Before you reach the nascent soul stage, I don't recommend you go to the Empire." Fengzhou's eyes flickered. She heard these words again. Originally, these words were said by Xianyuan Mose. He told her not to go to the Empire before she reached the nascent soul stage. And now, Imo-chin actually said the same thing. Could it be that the people in the Empire were really that strong? That terrifying? Could it be that the people there are all above the nascent soul stage? She couldn't help but ask. In that place, even the waiters at the inns are great spiritual masters. Golden core cultivators can be seen everywhere. Moreover, if you don't agree with them, the most direct way to deal with them is to fight. After eating 2 pastries, he wiped the corners of his mouth and continued, "Without the cultivation of the nascent soul stage and without the protection of a powerful force, you'll have to tuck your tail between your legs." Fengzhou was silent. She was now at the peak of the foundation establishment stage. She had set a goal for herself, which was to reach the golden core stage within a year. However, when she returned to the academy, she still had to participate in the ranking competition. She reckoned that she wouldn't have enough time. As for reaching the nascent soul stage, she didn't need to think about it for the next 2 years. She and Xianyuan Mose had agreed on a 10-year time limit. However, she only planned to reach the nascent soul stage within 5 years. Now, more than a year had passed. Perhaps because the topic was too heavy, the two sat down and didn't talk about it again. After resting for a while, Fengzhou looked at the sky and directly took out the flying ship. She said to the 3 of them, "Let's get on the ship. The speed will be faster, and you can also rest on the boat." Imo-chin glanced at the luxurious spaceship and then glanced at her. His gaze seemed to be saying, "Why didn't you take it out earlier?" Fengzhou was speechless. Sitting on the flying ship, he burned his spirit stones and headed towards Enchanting Kingdom. On the other side, after third elder of Shangguan clan in the imperial city of East City learned that Fengzhou and the others had left, he also left with his subordinates. He planned to send someone to investigate Fengzhou's identity after returning to the clan. He wanted to know, other than his identity as the ghost doctor, was there any other relationship with the Feng family? After about half a month's time, Fengzhou and the rest returned to Enchanting Kingdom. After arriving at Enchanting Kingdom, she kept the flying ship and said to Imo-chin, "We've arrived at the border here. I still have things to do, so I won't be returning to the academy with you." Imo-chin glanced at her and nodded. She didn't even say a word before leaving on her sword. After she left, Fengzhou brought Ling Shuang and the rest to the manor, planning to pick up Lao Bai and return to the academy. As soon as they arrived at the manor, they were greeted by 8 Phoenix guards. "Master, you're finally back." Chapter 885. The assessment is finally out. I heard my father mention it when I went back for the new year. However, the 7th class is only temporary. I believe that it won't be long before the country's strength can be improved again. She smiled and her words were full of confidence. That's for sure. The 8 of them smiled and replied. Fengjiu glanced around but did not see Xianghua and Bai Xiao. He asked, where are the 2 of them? Bai Xiao and Du Fan are at the back of the mountain. Xianghua went out on a mission 2 days ago and hasn't returned yet. However, he should be back today. As Luo Yu spoke, he told her about the missions they had received these days and the improvement of their strength. Master, we have all entered the martial arts grandmaster level. Since we took on a mission, there is nothing we can't complete. Hearing this, Fengjiu chuckled. Don't be too proud. This is only the Qingting kingdom. The strength of a martial arts grandmaster is not strong. You have to be careful when you are outside. Alright, I will go and rest first. I will return to the academy tomorrow morning. Ling Shuang and Ling Hua will stay here. Look for me if you need anything. Yes. Everyone replied. After watching her leave, they surrounded Ling Shuang and Ling Hua and asked them questions. Especially after they found out that Ling Hua had a water spirit root, they were very curious. However, in the evening, before the sky was completely dark, Du Fan, Luo Yu, and the others' expressions changed drastically. They hurried to the courtyard where she lived. Master, something happened. In the room, Feng Jiu had just woken up for a while. After hearing the anxious voices outside, she opened the door and walked out. Seeing the sorrowful and angry expressions on their faces, her heart couldn't help but sink. Just as she was about to speak, she noticed that some of them didn't look right. Master, Xianghua, he is dead. As Luo Yu spoke, he lowered his head in grief. Although they had not known Xianghua for long, they worked together and went on missions together. However, who knew that he would mysteriously die after taking on a mission? Fengjiu, who was about to ask where they had been, heard this. Fengjiu's heart sank. Dead? How did he die? How did you know? Where did you get the news? As a cultivator at the peak of the Golden Core stage, how could he die so easily? She had never thought that they would suddenly tell her that Xianghua was dead. Du Fan took a deep breath and said in a pained voice, someone activated the array and hung his body outside our manor. Let's go out and check. When they went outside, they didn't see anyone else. They only saw Xianghua's body hanging on a tree not far away. When they saw his body, they couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe that Xianghua, who had been drinking and laughing with them 2 days ago, had died just like that. Where's the corpse? Her face was dark, and her eyes were cold. It's in the front yard. Everyone said and led her to the front yard. When they came to the front yard, Fengjiu did not touch Xianghua's body. Instead, she stood a step away and looked at him. Seeing that the person lying on the ground had no breath and his body was stiff, her hands were tightly clenched into fists, and her heart was full of killing intent. She raised her eyes and glanced at them. Du Fan, Luo Yu, Fan Lin, Minnie, and Fang Qing, did you all touch Xianghua's body? Chapter 886. His body was sprinkled with a colorless and odorless poison. You guys should have touched him, right? She stared at them and saw their faces change. Yes, we all moved the body in to check, but I didn't find any poison, Fan Lin said with a serious expression. Because he was the one who knew medicine, when he saw Xianghua's body, the others helped to lift it up while he was responsible for checking, but he didn't expect. Fengjiu glanced at them. First, she took Fan Lin's pulse to check what kind of poison he was poisoned with. However, this check made her heart sink, because it was not an ordinary poison. This poison was not only colorless and odorless, but it was also slow to take effect. Before it took effect, it was impossible to detect. If she didn't see a dark red color under their eyes, she really wouldn't have known that they were poisoned. Taking back her hand, she didn't speak, but took out a thin glove and a mask from her space. She couldn't detect it on their bodies, but it could be detected on Xianghua's body. She used a tool to collect some fine powder from his fingernails and collar, and asked without raising her head, "Fan Lin, what are the results of your examination?" "Master, he suffered hundreds of wounds all over his body, but they were not fatal. The tendons in his 2 legs were broken, his hands were directly twisted, and his body was burned in many places." Fan Lin said, and with every word, the anger in his heart deepened. He was a doctor, and from the wounds on his body, he naturally knew how much torture he had suffered before his death. And these were not the reasons for his death. The reason for his death was the explosion of his golden elixir, and all the tendons in his body were broken. Du Fan examined him and said that he might have been searched by a secret method when he was alive. Perhaps it was because of this that he finally detonated his golden elixir to commit suicide. Feng Zhou listened while examining. Just as Fan Lin said, he was tortured before his death, and his divine sense was seriously damaged. There were signs of his soul being searched. After a long time, she stood up and looked at Xianghua's body, killing intent and anger in her heart. She turned and looked at them, saying, "Luo Yu, many, you move his body to the back of the mountain and burn it. Bury him there. Du Fan, you find the information of the mission Xianghua took and give it to me. Fan Lin, you come with me to make the medicine. The others pay attention to the movements in the manor." The several people separated to do their work. Feng Zhou took Fan Lin to the pharmacy, intending to detoxify them first. "Tell me what's wrong with your body, and let me check it," she said while preparing the matter at hand. "Yes." Fan Lin responded, and did as she said. He helped her to make the antidote, and at the same time, to stimulate the poison in his body as soon as possible. After about an hour, the antidote still had not been made, and he could no longer hold on. "Master, it seems that the poison has taken effect. I can't see anything in front of me. I can't breathe, my whole body." Before he finished speaking, he had already collapsed. Seeing this, Feng Zhou caught him and put him on the ground. She quickly used needles to seal several major acupoints in his body, and checked him again. After finding the symptoms, she picked the medicine and made it. Chapter 887. After taking the antidote and pricking his acupoints with golden needles, the purple color on Fan Lin's face gradually faded after a few breaths. At this moment, Du Fan's voice came from outside. "Master, I've brought all the information. Come in." Feng Zhou put away the golden needles and looked at Du Fan. Seeing that the poison hadn't acted up yet, he handed him the antidote. "This is the antidote. Don't run your qi for an hour after taking it." "Yes." He took the antidote and handed over the information. "Take the antidote here to Luo Yu and the others." She took the information and went outside to read it. She saw that there was only a simple task on the information, but this task didn't seem to have any problems and wasn't dangerous. The problem was that this task was to guide people, and Xianghua was assigned to do this task. Why did he guide him to do this task? The task was fake, and the real purpose was to lure him to death, right? Then why did he lure Xianghua to death? Why did he have to search his soul? Who was he? If he could capture a cultivator at the peak of the Golden Core realm alive and search his soul, this person must have the cultivation of the nascent soul realm. Oh no, oh no. Bai Xiao hurriedly ran in from outside. His expression changed slightly, and his face was full of panic. When he saw Feng Zhou, who was guarding the manor, he hurriedly said, "Someone sneaked in from the back of the mountain." Hearing this, Feng Zhou's eyes flashed, and a cold light flashed through his eyes. Someone sneaked in from the back of the mountain? Yes, many of them are men in black. A ground-drilling mouse I tamed some time ago told me that they sneaked in and hid in the forest. Our manor is guarded by Leng Shuang and the others. Those people haven't come yet, but we don't know what they want to do. What should we do? What should we do now? He was a little worried. There were only a few of them in the manor, and a few of them were poisoned. Xiang Hua was dead, but before they could find out who did it, someone sneaked in from the back of the mountain. What did they want to do? It was obvious that they were coming for them. Just as he was speaking, a small grayish-white mouse with a fist in its fist came out of his arms, squeaking as it scurried around his body. Feng Zhou glanced at the little mouse, closed the information in his hand, and said, "Don't you know how to tame beasts? I'll leave the back of the mountain to you. Watch it for me." He stared blankly for a moment. Seeing her cold face and cold killing intent, he immediately replied, "Yes." He knew how to tame beasts, he wasn't a useless person. There were at least hundreds of ferocious beasts and spirit beasts in the back of the mountain. Even if his combat ability wasn't good, his tame, calm. 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 Feng Zhou turned around and said a few words to Du Fan, asking him to take care of the people who had not fully recovered from the poison, and went to the front. When she came to the front, she saw Ling Shuang and Leng Hua patrolling around the manor. When they saw her come out, they walked over. "Master!" The two of them called out. Just as they were about to speak, Feng Zhou called them in. "Is there any movement in front?" Feng Zhou asked. "I didn't see anyone, but it seems like someone activated the array. I went out to take a look. The atmosphere outside the manor is not right. It's like a lot of people have surrounded us and are staring at us." Chapter 888. "Yes." The two of them replied and looked at each other. "You guys guard the manor. I'll go outside and take a look." As she spoke, she walked out of the formation and arrived outside. As she watched the leaves around her move without any wind, her lips curled into a cold, bloodthirsty smile. "What's the point of hiding? Why? You don't dare to show your face. You're Xiang Hua's new master. Chu Baishan's successor." A sinister voice sounded. Then, a man wearing a black cloak with a long scar on his face walked out. As the man walked out, the men in black who were hidden in the surrounding trees also walked out and followed behind him. They no longer hid their aura, and evil aura spread out. The bloodthirsty and evil aura and the blood aura of these people made Feng Zhou realize at a glance that these people were evil cultivators. And they were evil cultivators with decent strength. Other than the leader who was a nascent soul cultivator, the dozens of people behind him were all golden core cultivators. The people surrounding the manor's array entrance were all foundation establishment cultivators. They were not from the Enchanting kingdom. To be exact, the Enchanting kingdom did not have evil cultivators with such strength. These people were at least from a third-class country. "You killed my people." She was surprised that she could still use such a calm and gentle tone to ask. "You mean that Xiang Hua?" "Ha!" The leader of the nascent soul cultivators laughed and stared at Feng Zhou. "I asked him to submit to me, but he refused. So I asked my people to teach him a lesson. But it was too boring. So I personally searched his soul. He was also stupid. He actually detonated himself. Really stupid. I wanted to throw his body to the wild beasts to gnaw on. But I thought of some useful information from the soul search and wanted to give you a gift. How about it? Are you satisfied with my gift?" The man stared at Feng Zhou and his voice was cold with a trace of madness. "Feng Zhou, right? Hand over the ancient divine sword, azure tip, and perhaps I'll leave all of your corpses intact. Otherwise, haha. Hearing his words, Fengzhou's eyes flickered and he laughed coldly. So you're saying that you're here for the Azure Edge Sword? I'm curious, how did you find us? But I'm not the only one targeting you. The Corrupt Paths people are all targeting your Qingfeng sword. Brat, if you don't have the strength to take it, then you're courting death. That person's black figure instantly shot out, clawing at Fengzhou. Fengzhou narrowed her eyes slightly as she stared at the incoming claw. The air around her body surged. She stood there without moving, but her killing intent and intimidating aura instantly shot out. With a move of her hand, the Qingfeng sword appeared in her hand. A sharp green light shot out, giving off a cold and frightening aura. With a wave of her hand holding the sword, the Qingfeng sword, which was different from ordinary swords, struck out like a large blade, bringing with it a strong gust of wind. Swish! 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 The frightening gust of wind swept out in an instant. For a moment, some of the black-clothed men who couldn't dodge in time were cut in half. Some of the more agile ones fell to the ground and narrowly avoided the attack. However, when the black-clothed men who narrowly avoided the attack stood up, they were so shocked that they broke out in cold sweat. They stared at the Qingfeng sword in disbelief. Chapter 889. The evil cultivator in black who had dodged stared at the Qingfeng sword in Fengzhou's hand with a dark expression. His eyes were filled with intense greed and excitement. This is the power of the Qingfeng sword. It's really not bad at all. As expected of an ancient divine sword. He stared at Fengzhou's sword and laughed sinisterly. As his laughter spread out, the airflow in the air fluctuated due to his pressure, becoming heavy and difficult to breathe. His laughter was especially eerie in the night. Fengzhou did not stare at anyone else. Her gaze was only fixed on the evil cultivator in the lead. Since he was the one who killed Xianghua, then she would make him pay with his blood. The red figure surged with spiritual power in the night. The dazzling flame-like airflow wrapped around her, making her look extremely dazzling. Even in the night, one could see her at a glance. She held the Qingfeng sword and pointed it diagonally to the ground. Her gaze slowly narrowed, and her cold and eerie voice carried a gloomy and intense bloodthirst as it spread out in the night. You have to pay the price for killing my people. As soon as her voice fell, the red figure swept out like a ghost. If it were not for the fiery airflow surging around her body, no one would be able to catch her movements. In that instant, everyone felt an earth-shattering murderous aura burst out from the red-clothed youth. The murderous aura was like a torrential river that was about to engulf them. What shocked them the most was that within the murderous aura, there was an ancient pressure that made their hearts tremble. I'll let you have a taste of death by 1,000 cuts. An icy voice rang out from Fengzhou's mouth, accompanied by the destructive sword aura from the Azure Edge sword. With a whoosh, the air seemed to have been sliced in half by the ancient divine sword. The azure light drew an arc from the bottom and slashed towards the nascent soul cultivator at a speed that was too fast for one's ears to react to. The nascent soul stage evil cultivator was also shocked by Fengzhou's pressure and murderous aura. A light flashed through his eyes, and because he could not dodge in time, he could only roll on the ground. However, he was still affected by the terrifying sword aura, and countless wounds of different sizes instantly appeared on his body. Smelling the faint smell of blood in the air and feeling the slight pain in his body, he laughed cruelly. He stared at Fengzhou Jia and laughed. Ha 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 ha! That eerie laughter eventually turned into loud laughter. The powerful nascent soul pressure spread out from the laughter, causing the people behind him to cover their ears and cry out in pain as they quickly retreated. The aura of an ancient divine beast. Ha 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 ha. It's actually the aura of an ancient divine beast. He opened his hands wide and laughed towards the sky. When his laughter stopped, he suddenly looked at Fengzhou with a strange light of excitement in his eyes. Not only do you have the Qingfeng sword, you also have an ancient divine beast. That means, as long as I kill you and crush your soul, everything will be mine. Everything will be mine, ha 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 ha. That will depend on whether you have the ability to do so. Chapter 890. Brat, you want to kill me. You're not qualified. Fengzhou smirked as she saw the evil cultivator charging towards her. Then I'll show you whether I'm qualified or not. As soon as she finished speaking, she no longer concealed her cultivation and aura. In an instant, the aura of the peak of the foundation establishment stage spread out from her body. A powerful ancient pressure also surged out like a flood under her release, turning into a ferocious beast that pounced towards the nascent soul stage evil cultivator. Hiss! This is that he sucked in a breath of cold air, his eyes filled with disbelief. As a nascent soul cultivator, he could sense the ancient aura from the young man's aura. Naturally, he could also sense that the aura of a peak foundation establishment cultivator emanating from the young man's body contained a terrifying aura. That was the aura of the heavenly Tao. Could it be that he's actually a heavenly Tao foundation establishment cultivator? The powerful aura from the ancient aura enveloped his entire body. He could only feel the aura of death enveloping his head. His body stiffened for a moment, but at that moment, a green light flashed before his eyes and a sharp pain shot through his spine. Hiss! The moment the green sword swung down, a bloody arm flew out. It spun a few times in the air before landing 10 meters away. A shrill scream pierced through the air and traveled into everyone's ears. Hiss! How is this possible? The Jindan stage evil cultivators and Foundation establishment stage evil cultivators who were 10 meters away were all shocked by this scene. They all widened their eyes in disbelief as they watched the severed arm fly through the air and smash into the ground that was covered with fine sand and stones. The evil cultivator clutched his severed arm and retreated step by step. His eyes were filled with disbelief and shock. He didn't expect Fengzhou to be so fast, nor did he expect that a nascent soul cultivator like him would have his arm chopped off by a foundation establishment cultivator. The sharp pain from his body and the warm blood on his hand that was clutching his severed arm clearly told him that this wasn't fake. This was real. His hand had really been chopped off by this youth. Fengzhou stood against the wind with her sword in hand. In the night, her red robes fluttered and a bloodthirsty aura spread from between her brows. She stared at the nascent soul evil cultivator in front of her and raised the Qingfeng sword in her hand, gesturing at him. You know what? If I had moved my sword just a little bit, I wouldn't have just cut off your arm. Her lips curled into a mocking sneer. Knowing that I have an ancient divine beast and the azure-edged sword, you still dare to provoke me? Ha! You're courting death. All of you, attack. Kill him. That nascent soul cultivator retreated step by step, but ordered the heretic cultivators behind him to step forward. However, these people were heretic cultivators. After seeing that even a nascent soul cultivator's arm had been chopped off, who would dare to step forward to die? When the nascent soul stage cultivator saw that no one came forward, he angrily turned around and glared at the people who had retreated 10 meters away. Go! What are you all standing there for? Kill him! However, as soon as he finished speaking, he felt a chill behind his back. A murderous aura attacked him. He immediately turned around and saw the red-robed youth closing in on him with the azure-edged sword in hand. The murderous aura was so fierce that he didn't want to retreat. He gritted his teeth and gathered a sharp chi in his uninjured hand to attack the youth. He turned around and planned to escape first. If he could save his life, he wouldn't have to worry about not being able to take his life in the future. You want to leave. Since you're here, don't even think about leaving alive. Chapter 891. The evil cultivators saw that when the nascent soul evil cultivator turned around to escape, the red figure behind him chased after him like a malicious spirit that had crawled out of hell. The person in front fled, and he chased after him. Rumbling sounds could be heard from time to time as the two of them fought. The surrounding trees were shaken and cut down as they fought. Gravel flew everywhere, and the airflow was like a knife. They were so frightened that they did not dare to go forward. Was that red-robed young man really just a Foundation establishment cultivator? How could a Foundation establishment cultivator be a match for a nascent soul cultivator? And he actually beat a nascent soul cultivator into such a sorry state. At this moment, they could not help but want to retreat and escape. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that even the nascent soul cultivator was no match for him, let alone them. Let's go. Someone shouted. Seeing that the situation was not good, they planned to escape. However, when they activated their spiritual aura and prepared to leave on their swords, they found that their aura was in a mess and could not be condensed. Oh no! There's poison in the air. One of the Golden Core evil cultivators was proficient in poisons and could be said to be the first to discover the problem. He found that the poison was colorless and odorless. It did not take effect immediately, but it corroded their bodies from the inside, making them unable to condense their spiritual power to escape and unable to fight. This is somewhat similar to my soul-seizing poison. The Golden Core evil cultivator's face changed drastically, and the blood drained from his face. He, who was familiar with poisons, analyzed the symptoms of his body. This poison was somewhat similar to his poison, but it had been modified. However, a person who had been poisoned would not notice it in a short period of time. However, if he tried to condense his spiritual power, he would not be able to condense it. Forcefully condensing it would only speed up the poison's flow in his blood. He suddenly retreated and looked at the young man who was fighting with the nascent soul cultivator in horror. It's him. He was the one who sprinkled the poison in the air when they were unknowingly and defenseless. He trembled as he took out the antidote pill and wanted to take it. No matter what poison it was, he would take the antidote pill first. However, when they saw him take out the antidote pill and was about to take it, the eyes of the Golden Core evil cultivators beside him turned red. They went forward to snatch it. Give me the antidote pill. Give it to me. Give it to me. None of them dared to use their spiritual power and aura. They actually forcefully fought over the treasures. They were like shrews and did not look like cultivators at all. However, these people were evil cultivators and did not care about how others looked at them. Most evil cultivators were selfish and only cared about themselves. Why would they care about the lives of others? Just then, a strange melody came from the night. The sound was thin, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, coming from afar. Just as they were wondering which reckless person was playing music in this place in the middle of the night, they heard a chaotic roar. Roar! 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 The roars of the ferocious beasts were exceptionally clear in the darkness of the night. The heavy and disorderly footsteps were like muffled thunder, causing the ground to shake. When those people saw the ferocious beasts that they normally wouldn't even frown in the slightest, their faces turned deathly pale and filled with terror. It's a vicious beast. Damn it! Why are there so many vicious beasts? Hundreds of vicious beasts rushed out. Some quickly surrounded them, and some pounced on them to bite them. For a moment, they cried out in alarm and tried to escape. However, they found that the path was blocked by hundreds of vicious beasts and spiritual beasts. Chapter 892. Behind him, Ling Shuang and the others also walked out. There were traces of battle on their bodies. Obviously, they had fought with the person who had sneaked into the back of the mountain. "Master, the people in the back of the mountain have been dealt with," Bai Xiao shouted. Seeing that the nascent soul cultivator was being defeated by her, she picked up the musical instrument in her hand and put it to her mouth. As the sound of the musical instrument rang out, the ferocious beasts pounced on the cultivators crazily and bit them. They didn't need to do anything. The evil cultivators who couldn't use their spiritual power to fight were all torn to pieces by the ferocious beast's claws. Shrill screams and the strong smell of blood filled the air. In less than half an hour, the ground was covered in blood and flesh. None of the evil cultivators survived. Bai Xiao and the others looked in the direction of the scream. They saw that one of the nascent soul cultivator's legs had been chopped off by the Qingfeng sword. He flew out and fell to the ground, unable to stand up. Fengjiu walked closer and looked at the evil cultivator who was struggling and wailing on the ground. Murderous intent surged in his eyes. "Have you thought about how you want to die?" The evil cultivator had one of his arms and one of his legs chopped off. He couldn't dodge or escape. He could only sit there and stare at Fengjiu, who was full of murderous intent. "Who are you? How can a Peak Foundation establishment cultivator injure me to this extent? Who are you? How dare you provoke me when you don't even know who I am?" She sneered and pointed the sharp sword in her hand at his dantian. "Don't even think about trying to escape with your nascent soul. Not many people I want to kill can escape." The nascent soul cultivator's face was ghastly pale. Cold sweat seeped out of his forehead. He stared at Fengjiu in front of him and smiled sinisterly. He gritted his teeth and wanted to explode and kill himself. Unexpectedly, Fengjiu, who had already seen through his intentions, shot out a few silver needles. The evil cultivator fell to the ground, as if he had lost consciousness. "Take him back. Don't let him die so easily," she said coldly. She glanced at the dead evil sorcerers around her and said to the few of them, "Clean this up." Then, she walked into the manor. Even after killing those people, she still couldn't let it go. After killing those people, Xianghua would not come back to life. He hadn't been by her side for a long time, but his oath seemed to still echo in her mind. However, such a person was now dead. She knew that this was only the beginning and not the end. As long as she walked down this path, the people around her could face all of this. They could be implicated by her and die because of her. Everyone watched as she walked into the manor with the Qingfeng sword in hand. They couldn't help but sigh in their hearts, but they didn't know what to say. They could only listen to her and deal with this place first. Xianghua's death was a blow to them, but also a warning. It let them know that if someone really wanted to kill them and set them up, with their current strength, they really could only be trampled on. Those who are seriously injured, go back and bandage them. Those who are lightly injured, follow me to clean up the scene. Du Fan said and led a few people who were lightly injured to deal with the corpses outside. Chapter 893. It was destined to be a sleepless night. It was already midnight by the time they cleaned up the area outside. After returning to the courtyard, Fengjiu calmed down for a while and went to the dungeon. She looked at the unconscious nascent soul evil cultivator in the dungeon. "Drag him out." She gestured. Du Fan and Ling Shuang, who were behind her, stepped forward and dragged him out. Looking at the unconscious nascent soul evil cultivator, she narrowed her eyes and walked up to him. She reached out her hand and touched the top of his head. Soul searching was a technique that was not accepted and very few people would use. The person who had his soul searched would become a useless person. His spirit and spirit would be damaged and he could only be an idiot. Therefore, very few people would use soul searching. However, People still use this technique on evil cultivators and those who had secrets. She closed her eyes and used her hand to search his head with her divine sense. The information in his mind flashed through her mind without any concealment. The words he had said, the things he had done, the things she knew, and the things she did not know, were all entered into her divine sense. After a long time, she opened her eyes and withdrew her hand. She turned and walked out, leaving a sentence, "Take him to the ferocious beasts as a snack." Ling Shuang followed behind her and left. Du Fan responded and dragged the unconscious man to the back of the mountain. They gathered in the hall late that night. Fengjiu told them some things and asked them to be careful when they went out for missions in the future. She also told them that the evil cultivator knew that she had obtained the Qingfeng sword through soul-searching. He probably wanted to keep it for himself. The news had not spread yet, so they just needed to pay more attention to the movements of other parties. Finally, she said to Luoyu, "Go to the Cool Breeze gang after daybreak and tell Ren Xiang that there is a force secretly plotting to take over the power of Yan Dian. Ask him to be careful and ask him if he has safely sent the son of Yan Dian to the people who will receive him." "Yes, master. Don't worry. I will leave at daybreak," Luo Yu replied. Fengjiu nodded, then got up and returned to her room. After she left, the others were still sitting in the hall, discussing matters. It wasn't until the evening of the next day that Luo Yu returned and inquired, "Is master still in the courtyard? Or did he return to the academy?" "He's still in the courtyard, but he hasn't come out since last night." Fan Lin sighed softly and asked, "How is the matter that master asked you to do coming along?" "Yes, I've passed on the message and asked master what he wanted to know. I was just about to report back to master. He said, I'll go to master's courtyard to take a look." "I'll go too." Fan Lin immediately followed. When they arrived at the courtyard, both Leng Hua and Leng Shuang were there. They asked, "Where's master?" "Still not out yet." "You're looking for her?" "I'll go and report," Leng Hua said, then knocked on the door and called, "Master, Brother Luo is back." There was no movement in the room. After a while, the door opened and Fengjiu, dressed in red, walked out. She glanced at the people in the courtyard, then her gaze fell on Luo Yu. Seeing this, Luo Yu hurriedly reported, "Master, I've passed on the message. Ren Xiang said that he has safely sent the son of Yan Dian to the people who will receive him, so you don't have to worry." Chapter 894. Seeing that she was about to leave, everyone escorted her out of the manor. They watched as she rode on Lao Bai's back and left with Tun Yun. They stood there for a long time before returning to the manor. Although they were master and servant, their master treated them like family. They all knew that their master was very sad to see Xiang Hua killed. After all, everyone who followed her was carefully selected by her. Now, they were all gone. Thinking of this, everyone secretly made up their minds. They had to work hard and cultivate. They had to become stronger as soon as possible. The next morning, Fengjiu returned to the academy after a trip to the black market. She walked through the academy's main gate and went straight to her cave residence. The academy had started school at the beginning of February and the students had all returned. However, it was still early and there were not many students walking around in the academy. After returning to the academy and reporting, she did not go out again. Every day, if she was not cultivating in her cave residence, she was refining pills and making medicine. Half a month had passed. One day, the dean sent someone to summon her. "Dean, Vice Dean." When she arrived at the main peak, she bowed to the two of them. She swept her gaze around and saw that Mo Chin was also by the side, but she nodded slightly. When she saw Mo Chin return a faint smile, she looked away. "I heard that you came back a while ago, but I haven't seen you around the academy. I called you here today to tell you that in 3 days, the 10 students you've selected will be following the vice headmaster and several mentors to participate in the ranking competition between the academies. Are you ready? Who are the other 9 people? She asked. The dean smiled and said, 2 of the top 10 geniuses of the academy have been squeezed out by you and Xiaoyihan. The others have not changed. We originally planned to let your brother participate, but he hasn't returned yet. He only sent a message saying that he went to another country with the mercenaries from the black market. He probably won't be back in a short time, so he didn't get a spot. Hearing this, her eyes flickered. Her brother hasn't returned yet. In the past half a month, she had not paid attention to this. She had only focused on cultivating and refining pills. She was not in the mood to care about anything else. I'm fine. We're leaving in 3 days, right? I understand. She nodded and said. Then go back and prepare. We'll meet at the plaza in 3 days. Okay, then I'll go back first. She replied and turned to leave. Returning to the cave residence, she saw White and Tun Yun lying outside the cave residence. She walked over and said, I'm going to participate in the school tournament in 3 days. Do you two want to stay here or go into the space? I want to follow Master. I can enter the space, but I don't want to stay here. Old White said anxiously. I want to follow Master as well, Tun Yun said. Only the big black bear at the side didn't know what they were talking about. It tilted its head and looked at them in a daze. Old White's body is too big. He can't come out after entering the space. As for Tun Yun, he doesn't need to enter the space. He can just stay by my side. She looked at the 2 beasts and then looked at the big black bear. She patted its head and said, Little Black, do you want to go back to the forest? Roar! It let out a low roar and hugged the tree beside it, indicating that it did not want to go back. Chapter 895. Awoo! She didn't know whether the big black bear understood or not, but it howled and came to her side to rub against her, showing a close attitude. Looking at it stretching out its clumsy bear claws and waving them in front of her, Fengjiu couldn't help but be amused, revealing her first smile in nearly half a month. Well, that's it. I'll go back and refine some things, just in case. She patted the heads of the 3 beasts around her and was about to return to the cave when she heard Yi Jing's voice. Fengjiu. She turned around and looked at the person, Yi Jing. Why are you here? Yi Jing came to her side and said, I know you've been back for half a month, but you've been cultivating in the cave and haven't come out, so I didn't come to disturb you. I just heard that the dean was looking for you, so I wanted to come and have a look. I know that you're also among the 10 places this time. You're going back so far and will be gone for so long. Fortunately, you're going with me. Well, since I came back, I've been in the cave and didn't go out. I just found out that we'll be leaving in 3 days. She pulled her to sit down at the table under the tree. My brother may have missed it this time. I guess he tripped over something, otherwise he wouldn't have missed this opportunity. Yes. We originally agreed to participate together, but I didn't expect him to not come back yet. Speaking of this, she sighed softly and said with some worry, I don't know if he encountered any danger outside. Going out with the mercenaries of the black market, the degree of danger is not low. It doesn't matter, he will have a sense of propriety. Even if he misses this time, there will be other opportunities in the future. Fengjiu, I heard that the people in the second-class countries are very strong. In fact, I'm a little worried that I won't even be able to enter the top 20 this time. She looked at her and said, This school tournament is a competition between the students from the 6th class and 2nd class countries to compete for the ranking list. Only we are from the 6-star academy. I'm really worried. The world is so big, it's normal for someone to be stronger than us. No matter what the result of the tournament is, as long as we try our best. She said with a smile. Yi Jing nodded her head and took out the Spiritual Academy's white uniform. Director Liu asked me to bring this for you. Other than being a student of the alchemy department, you are also a student of the Spiritual Academy. He wants you to wear the Spiritual Academy's uniform when you go out. Okay. She took the 2 sets of clothes and put them away in her space. Then I'll leave first. She said goodbye to him. Fengjiu sent her off, and after she left, she returned to her cave to refine pills. Until 3 days later. Under the lead of the vice principal, Director Liu, and Director Liu, the 10 students of the academy gathered at the plaza one after another. Many students came to send them off. When Fengjiu brought Tun Yun to the plaza, she saw that 10 people had already arrived. Other than Nietang, Xiaoyihan, and Yi Jing, there were also a few people that she had seen before. Almost all of them were students of the Spiritual Academy. She roughly looked around and saw that there were 9 people, including her, but Ouyang Xiu's figure was nowhere to be seen. After looking around, she saw a figure coming from not far away. Fengjiu, you're here. Yi Jing came to her side. Seeing her looking at Ouyang Xiu, she also looked at him. Chapter 896. My dear disciple, you're here too. Fengjiu went up to greet him. Seeing his ashen and embarrassed expression, she couldn't help but laugh. Don't you need to greet your master when you see him? Quick, let's hear it. Her voice wasn't too loud, but it was heard by everyone around. They all looked at the 2 of them in astonishment. What was going on? How did he become the master of the disciple? Did the relationship between the 2 of them improve? They remembered that last year, Ouyang Sr. kept saying that he wanted to challenge Fengjiu, but he didn't succeed in the end. Could it be that something happened that they didn't know about when they didn't know? Don't go too far. He stared at the person in front of him who was laughing so hard that his eyes narrowed into a line and warned in a low voice. AI, you were the one who was willing to do this. How can you say that I'm going too far? Don't you know that a teacher for a day is a teacher for life? Since you called me master, then you're my disciple. Don't worry, I'll recognize you. She chuckled and looked at him with a teasing tone. Ouyang Xiu opened his mouth, but found that he couldn't find the words to reply. In the end, he just snorted, "Don't worry, I'll definitely defeat you." As soon as his voice fell, he walked past him and stood behind the vice president. Seeing this, Fengjiu crossed her arms and smiled. This disciple of hers really wanted to save face. He obviously wasn't her opponent. Fengjiu, why did you call Ouyang Sr. your disciple? You and him. Yi Jing was curious. Last year, she was still avoiding him. Why did it seem like Ouyang Xiu was avoiding her now? Oh, didn't he keep saying that he wanted to challenge me last year? Then he ran halfway to stop me. In the end, I said that if he lost, he had to call me master. So when I won, he naturally became my disciple. Speaking of this, the smile on her face deepened. Hearing this, Yi Jing nodded, so that's how it is. Strange, isn't everyone here? Who are they waiting for? She asked. Seeing that the 10 students had all arrived, even the vice president and 2 teachers had arrived, but they didn't seem to have any intention of leaving. It seemed like they were still waiting for someone. I don't know. Maybe there are other instructors who haven't come yet. Fengjiu. Xiaoyihan walked over with large strides. Just as he was about to pat her shoulder and greet her, he remembered that she was a woman and could not help but retract his hand in embarrassment. I heard that you have been cultivating ever since you came back. Has your cultivation increased greatly recently? Seeing that it was him, she smiled and said, not really. I've been concocting pills a lot recently. You, on the other hand, your cultivation has improved a lot after not seeing you for a while. Ha ha ha, that's right. I've worked hard. I was going to compete with Guan Shilin, but he hasn't come back since he went out this time. It's a pity that he even missed the school tournament. There will be more opportunities. Who knows, my brother might be training outside right now, which is even better than us in this academy. I don't deny that. Outside, it's a real fight. However, with his strength outside, aren't you worried? Seeing that she didn't look worried at all, he couldn't help but feel strange. It stood to reason that the relationship between the two was so good. Guan Shilin had been training outside for so long and hadn't come back. She should be anxious. Chapter 897. The white figure walked over from a distance. His steps were light and steady, and his figure was graceful. His clothes fluttered in the wind, making him look like an immortal descending to the mortal world. When he appeared, many of the surrounding female students had red hearts in their eyes as they looked at him with gazes of adoration, shyness, and excitement. However, the immortal-like man didn't seem to notice the people around him. His gaze swept past Feng Zhou's face indifferently, taking in her astonishment. A smile seemed to appear at the corner of his lips. He slowly walked to the front of the vice-headmaster and said a few words to him. The vice-headmaster looked at everyone and said, "Since everyone is here, let's go." "Yes." Everyone responded. Just as they were about to walk out of the academy's gate, a voice suddenly sounded out. "Wait." Everyone was startled as they turned around to see a student of the academy. Some people recognized him as one of the academy's top 10 students. However, other than Xiaoyi Han, who took the top 3 spot, the person at the bottom was pushed out because of Feng Zhou. Unlike Xiaoyi Han, who had obtained his spot through a challenge, Feng Zhou had not fought with anyone in the top 10 and was directly selected by the dean. Therefore, other than a few people who knew about her strength, the majority of the people were puzzled and unconvinced about Feng Zhou's participation in the academy's competition. It's Senior Gong. This time, because Feng Zhou was selected, Senior Gong, who was ranked 10th, was pushed out. Senior Gong's strength wasn't only ranked 10th, but last year's ranking was overtaken. This year, his ranking was lowered and he was ranked 10th. Therefore, he wasn't able to participate in the academy's competition. However, I feel that his strength is stronger than Feng Zhou's. That's right, I think so too. However, it could be that Feng Zhou's background is stronger than Senior Gong's. Otherwise, Senior Gong wouldn't have been pushed out without even competing. It's said that Feng Zhou came from a 9th-tier country. However, something happened last year and the entire academy's teachers were sent to save him. I feel that his background isn't ordinary. Let's not talk about that. Look at Student Gong's posture. Don't tell me he wants to challenge Feng Zhou here. He's already been selected, so how could the vice head allow him to mess around? Hearing this, everyone's gazes fell on Senior Gong and then looked at Feng Zhou. They were all wondering if the two of them were going to fight. Is there something you need? The vice head looked at the student surnamed Gong and asked. Vice head, I refuse to accept this. His voice was deep, making his intentions clear. His gaze swept past the crowd and landed on Feng Zhou. What right does he have to represent the academy in the competition? I'm not convinced. He's just a new student who came in last year. How could he be stronger than me? I'm not convinced. I want to challenge him. Hearing those words, the vice school head frowned. These are the rules of the academy. We have our own reasons for replacing you. You may return now. Don't delay our departure time. There was a hint of displeasure in his voice. He was well aware of Fengzhou's strength. It could be said that among the 10 students, Fengzhou was the one he and the dean valued the most. The only reason they had a chance to enter the top 3 was because of Fengzhou. Chapter 898. Could it be that he's stronger than me? He asked in a calm voice, unwilling to accept this. Among the 10 students, Enchanting, Ouyang Xiao, and Xiaoyi Han all glanced at him when they heard this. The 2 in front didn't say anything, but their gazes were filled with contempt. As for Xiaoyi Han, he sneered when he heard this. Don't you know that he's stronger than you? If it weren't for the fact that he's stronger, you wouldn't have been pushed down. As for Fengzhou, he stood beside Yi Jing as if it had nothing to do with him. The 2 of them were whispering to each other, but no one knew what they were talking about. Hearing Xiaoyi Han's words, the student surnamed Geng pursed his lips, clearly not believing it. Thus, his gaze fell on Fengzhou, who was wearing the Spiritual Academy's uniform. Fengzhou, do you dare to compete with me? If I lose, I'll accept it wholeheartedly. Otherwise, I won't let you off. Seeing him yell at him, Fengzhou sighed in his heart. He glanced at him and said, but you really aren't my opponent. I'm really embarrassed to fight someone weaker than me. Hearing this, the student surnamed Geng's face darkened. You! Enough! Are you done with your nonsense? The Vice Academy head yelled in a deep voice, his sharp gaze sweeping over the student surnamed Geng. You're not his opponent. Our decision was made after discussion. We naturally knew what we were doing when we let him replace you. Moreover, he was already a Foundation Establishment cultivator last year. Do you think that a great spirit master like you can be a match for a Foundation Establishment cultivator? Hearing this, the student surnamed Geng was dumbfounded. Foundation Establishment cultivator? Fengzhou. He's already a Foundation Establishment cultivator? How is this possible? Not only him, but the surrounding students were also stunned. They couldn't believe it. After all, he just entered last year. How could he have already reached Foundation Establishment last year? They hadn't heard of him before. If this was really a secret, wasn't it too good? Yes, I can testify that Fengzhou is indeed a Foundation Establishment cultivator. Let alone you, even I am no match for her. Yi Jing said. She was ranked 5th in the top 10 and was stronger than Geng. However, she was no match for Fengzhou, let alone Yi Jing. When the student surnamed Geng heard this, he was startled and speechless for a long time. He could only stare blankly at Fengzhou. All right, let's go. Don't be late. With that, the vice president strode out. This time, he stood there and watched, but did not open his mouth to protest. No matter how arrogant he was and how much he didn't want to admit it, he knew that if the vice president and Yi Jing said so, then it was most likely true. Everyone else watched as they left, and when they reached the entrance, the vice-chancellor waved his sleeve, and a spacecraft appeared in front of them. Everyone get on the spacecraft. The vice-chancellor said, letting everyone get on first. The 10 people who were selected, in addition to being the top 10 in the academy, also had good family backgrounds. Naturally, they didn't find the spacecraft novel. Therefore, each one of them calmly walked up. Finally, the 2 mentors, the vice-chancellor and Nemo Chen, boarded the spacecraft together. The spacecraft floated off the ground and flew into the sky. The people outside the gate watched for a long time before coming back to their senses. They looked on enviously as the spacecraft disappeared into the clouds. Then, they turned around and returned to the academy. In time, they would also be able to go to a second-class country, or even a first-class country, and enter a 1-star academy. Chapter 899. The two-star academy was located in a second-class country near the Scarlet Spirit mountain range, and was built on a mountain. The area it occupied was several times larger than that of the Enchanting six-star academy. Every star class was different, so the resources were also different. Even the teachers and students were different. Living in a two-star academy, everyone had a sense of pride in their hearts. Pride that they were from a two-star academy, pride that they were superior to others. On this day, the people of the two-star academy arrived by airship one after another. As the host, the people of the two-star academy naturally took up the job of receiving them. Therefore, inside and outside the academy, students and teachers could be seen everywhere. When the Vice Academy head landed the airship, the people on the airship followed behind him and walked down. Looking at the majestic entrance of the academy, they could not help but be secretly surprised. The two huge stars on the entrance of the academy seemed to be made out of spirit stones. Under the sunlight, they reflected a dazzling light. The magnificent entrance of the academy was wide open, and at a glance, one could see the prosperity inside. "How should I address you? May I know which academy you are from?" One of the teachers came forward and asked. His eyes swept over the crowd and saw a handsome man and a beautiful woman, but after looking at them for a second or two, he moved his eyes away. In the world of immortal cultivation, there was no shortage of handsome men and beautiful women. "We are from the six-star academy. This old man's surname is Guan, and I am the Vice Academy head of the six-star academy. These are the teachers leading the team." Old man Guan gave a simple introduction. "Oh, so you are from the six-star academy." The teacher nodded and smiled, and called several students. "You take the teachers and students of the six-star academy to settle down first, and then arrange for a few people to familiarize themselves with the academy." "Yes." Several students responded, and made a gesture to the Vice Academy head and the others. The Vice Academy head nodded, and followed them with the people behind him. "This two-star academy is really different, just look at the construction inside." Xiao Yihan walked and looked around, and praised again and again, "Look at the ground, isn't this a spiritual gathering array? But it seems to be somewhat different, moreover, the spiritual power aura here is really abundant. Well, if a two-star academy is like this, then a one-star academy would be even better." Feng Jiu also said with a smile. She looked around and saw that the students here were all wearing the same white uniform. The only difference was that they had six-star badges on their clothes, while the other party had two-star badges on their clothes. The students who were leading the way introduced the academy to the Vice Academy head and Vice Academy head. While listening to the words of the students behind them, they could not help but sneer in their hearts, "Country bumpkins are country bumpkins." The students were divided into two groups. One group led the vice headmaster and the mentors to a mountain peak where the mentors lived, while the other group led Feng Nine and the others to where the students lived. The men and women were separated, and the four of them stayed in the same courtyard. "You two female students can stay here." Academy. Inside Academy's Academy. Of. The two male students said to Yi Jing and Zhou Xian. Since the two of them were female, their attitudes were relatively better. "You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.